Hello and welcome back to RageGamingVideos and my first episode of interesting things you didn't know in Monster Hunter Wilds. For this, the goal is to just show you cool, interesting, or just weird details, intentional or otherwise, as well as providing lots of useful tips along the way. So if you're watching and think you could add something, then let us know in the comments, but we'll talk about that at the end. Let's just get into it. Kicking off with something that I noticed in one of my first days playing Wilds as I was changing gear more in low rank and doing the story. Your hunter will carry around with them different knives. So, for example, as I go to pull this one out and sharpen it, you can see that this is quite a unique knife. A bone handle and then a blade in its own unique shape. This is completely determined by the waist that you're wearing. So if we look at my back, you can see that that knife is the very one that I've just pulled out of its sheath at my waist. So if we come to the waist option and change it around, you can find out that this is the Hope knife in specific. If we go to the alloy set, you can see that it's just a different knife and setup, and some of them are very different. This one, for example, is a completely different shape. This one's quite thin and small, surprisingly so, with the ebony. If we go to the Wudwud by comparison, you see that we have these ones on my hips instead. Or say with the Suja, this is completely different, an entirely different blade. There's quite a list of really unique ones. Like for example, with the dahaad set, with this waist in particular, we have just like a bunch of knives strapped to us. And as we turn around to look at the ones at the back, they actually have their own actual sheath rather than being a blunted bit of metal. Those are the real knives on the back. It's so unnecessary, this level of detail, but I absolutely love it. And my favorite one that I want to show you is actually the artian waist, because where's the knife, right? Well, this is the knife. Absolutely insane. It's like a literal lightsaber. And check it out. He's sharpening the light. Yep, that looks sharp. Sometimes I wonder if these hunters have taken so many concussions that there's something wrong with them. You just know someone had a really good time thinking of this idea and designing the knife specifically for this waist. But obviously he's pulling it out from behind at the back of the waist, so I don't know where he's pulling it from. Like, there's not actually anything there. But let me know, is there any other specifically really cool waist knives to look at? Next up for cool visual highlights though, I want to talk about the artian weapons and how they all have a unique effect when they're unsheathed. But did you know that some of them quite literally change size, maybe more aggressively than they intended? So to give you an example of what I'm talking about, let's look at a couple and then I'll show you what I really mean. So on our back we have the longsword here. It's not doing anything, but it obviously has that core. As we unsheath it, that's when that core activates. The light down the length of the blade is revealed, but by no means is it the coolest artian weapon. Pretty low on the list, in fact. One of the artian weapons that looks significantly better is the switch axe, which actually looks really cool on your back compared to how most switch axes look. All those gears come to life as we unsheath it and transform the weapon, turning it into this awesome saw blade version of the axe as the cogs interact with each other, and some are offline, as you can see. As we transform then, it changes into this new chainsaw switchblade, and those offline gears and cogs, they're actually turning now for the blade. Certainly one of the cooler ones. But one of my favorites, not my favorite, but one of my favorites, is the charge blade artian. Because as you unsheath it, of course, it comes to life. We have all the gears inside, also have the power and the sword there, and then you can transform it into the full-on axe where the whole thing comes to life. Cool. But what I noticed about this one is that it literally changes size, and you just saw it there. So as I've got it in sword and shield mode and I put it on my back, it doesn't sim to, it just kind of, you know, changes to off mode. But if I put it back onto my back from being axe mode, it's very clearly changing size. It's just full on shrinking. The reason for this is because there's actually two different models, like the sheath model and then the unsheathed model, and as it transitions between the two, it's essentially the weapon turning off. But I think they made an error with specifically the axe version of this artian weapon, in that it's a little bit too visually large compared to the version of the weapon that's on your back. Have you spotted this with any other weapons? One last thing I want to talk about in regards to visuals and weapons in particular is a really cool detail to do with the designs of a lot of them. Now, it's not the case for all weapons, but for some weapons, there's a unique change between their pre-Rarity 8 version. So everything before its final rarity, basically. If you really pay attention to this Balahara blade, you can see that the coloring changes as they go from Rarity 7 to 8. It becomes kind of coppery for some reason. Looking at it on my back, I think the difference is clearer, going from that silvery polish to this bronze. But it's not just that. Take the Kumatrice sword and shield here, looks pretty cool, very shiny. As we go into Rarity 8, for some reason it now gets a little flag cape on the shield specifically. You see the difference? Just representing the tail of Kumatrice. I don't know, it's kind of random. Same thing for the Chatacabra SNS. You can see that it's got that kind of bone coloring, and then that changes for some reason to this kind of bronzy coppery. But the best version of this by far is the Lalabarina set, where this isn't just like a random color change at all. No, it visually changes in such a significant and awesome way. What we're looking at here is essentially Lalabarina in a normal state. But as she enrages and reveals the flower within, so does the Rarity 8 weapons, completely changing their look. The SNS actually grows in length and becomes that deep blood red within. The shield becomes an open rose, which is just absolutely fantastic detail. They did not need to go that hard, but obviously they've gone very hard on some and very mid on others. Like, we can tell the difference in the greatsword with the Cumatrice pretty well here. You've got this kind of silvery version, and then as we go to the higher version, it completely changes the color theme of it. So I do think quite a few of them have this kind of bland change between them, but again, there are some standouts. Like, take the Deshagama tree. This is, of course, the familiar Deshagama greatsword. Looks awesome, like the ultimate version of a bone weapon. But when you look at its final form in Rarity 8, you can see that it completely changes colors in kind of a drastic way. We even have this purple coloring. This actually represents essentially the difference between the alpha version of Deshagama and the packs. So it's going from that lighter yellow to that darker red, which represents the monsters and their nature accurately. So I guess that's what they've done with all of the monsters. They've taken that idea of the alpha among the pack being that darker coloring and then put it across the board for certain monsters. The problem, I guess, is that not all of them are in packs, and there isn't actually a visual difference between them, so it just feels like random copper by comparison. But it's just obviously very stark with the Lalabarina, which is the best version of this by far. It just looks incredible, the difference between the two, and really matches that changing form of the monster. But if there's any others that I've not spotted that I could highlight in the same way as those two monsters, then let me know. Okay, this next one I am absolutely thrilled by. This is some of my favorite stuff in any big game ever since Dark Souls 1 when I first saw something like this. And this actually comes from us. Thank you, Cotton, for calling this out and let me know about it. There is a hidden camp in the Iceshard Cliffs in Area 7 called the Watchtower Campsite. And if you come here, there's an incredible view waiting for you. As we jump over, you can see the massive terrain of the Forbidden Lands and something absolutely incredible that's currently active that I want to show you. As we come up to where the actual camp is, we can get a proper high up view. Let me just run over to the edge, and here it is. Take a look at that view. All the way from the highest point of the game, the Iceshard Cliffs, we're looking across the entire map. Look at those massive craters down there. They look like they're full of water or something. But you know, I can tell what area that is down there. That's the oilwell basin. You can see we've got the fire spring kind of spouts coming out and the gas emanating. A bit further across these rocks and cliffs, we know what that is. That is Raydal's Nest. That's the sand tide currently active in the Windward Plains. You can physically see the weather that's happening somewhere. But I also just want to highlight the fact that behind that is the sand dunes. That's what we're looking at over there. So logically, I should be able to see where I'm standing right now from down there, right? So I'm down here in the dunes in the Windward Plains. I've changed it to the daytime, the time of plenty, to get, good visuals. And so this is the opposite direction of where we want to be looking. As I climb this dune, we should be able to see all the way to the Iceshard Cliffs. Should be possible. And as I look to my right, there it is. Across that rock wall cliff edge that we saw, should just barely be out of our line of sight, the oilwell basin. And beyond that, up where I was standing at that other camp, is the Iceshard Cliffs. We can at very least see the 4 major locales of the game, all from one location up at the Iceshard Cliffs. So as I was looking down at this region and looking at the sand tide occurring, we have the nest of Raydal over there that was lighting up. So how is it going to look from up there in this clearer vision? Well, we're back again. Let's take a look. And so the difference is pretty standout. You can now see that the visuals are a lot clearer. We can see a whole forest below us down there actually. And yes, we can see that these craters do have water in it and there's a whole river down there. Looking at different areas of the Forbidden Lands is quite interesting because you can see there's this long gash in the land there leading all the way there. And it makes you wonder, why? What's that? And if we'll ever go over there and maybe an update or maybe the expansion. So anyway, this gives us a nice look at what we're looking with the oilwell basin. And beyond that, there's the nest. And beyond that, there's the sand dunes that we were standing in just earlier. If I zoom in and look just to my right, This right here should be the Scarlet Forest. There's ancient structures there where, you know, the Woodwoods have made their home. Is that Area 17, which is, say, the final arena where you face duna that I was referring to there? As we're looking around, you can see those very same structures, those old civilization ruins with all the bones coming out of them, which is one of the structures, again, that the Woodwoods made their home in. So logically, if we want to look for the iceshard cliffs, it'd be somewhere over this wall here, but obviously we can't quite see. If you guys know of anything more like really cool views like this, please let me know. It's my favorite stuff. Okay, next up, in regards to using that tool that we've been using to look at long distances, we have the photo mode, where obviously I can take pictures of any environment, and as well, if I press square, I can also go into this new mode to position myself, and that's how I set up the shots for different things in these videos. If I press L1, I can go for all these different things and take different poses, which is pretty cool. But for some reason, specifically in the Windward Plains, at least as far as I found, when you take the picture, someone shows up to take it for you. Like, there's no technology involved. It's someone that's going to draw this for us. So if I take the picture, that saves the photo, and he spawns in. There he is, as you can see. This little guy. Basically another Palico that's entire job is to come draw the pictures that we take. As you can see, he's very proud of it. And then once he's done, he doesn't give us the picture, he just runs away and fades off into the distance. Feels very random, but for some reason I haven't actually triggered this when I was in, say, the Scarlet Forest. So I was wondering whether he's physically just here in the Windward Plains. And the answer to that question is yes, he's physically here in the Windward Plains. That's why he shows up in the Windward Plains. This guy, this is his place in the main base camp, and these are all of the different artistic drawings that he's been making, as well as creating our pictures for us when we take them, I guess. Or at least in the Windward Plains. Obviously the base camps are a little bit different around the different locations, and this one's just the most stocked and supplied and full of people, like this cat artist. Pretty cool. Now, one funny thing about specific locations where you get unique interactions. If you go into a pop-up camp in the Scarlet Forest specifically, this is also where you're going to find Woodwoods, obviously. Now, when you sit down in the camp, there are special animations that play out. Between you, yourself, maybe Alma will come in the tent, and the Palico and you will have different interactions, like one that's happening now. In this case, the Palico will begin to bounce irritatingly over and over and over, and you're going to try to get it to stop. If I press R2, I can interact with the Palico. I'm getting quite frustrated, so I'll send it into the sky like so. And he's gone. Hopefully I'll never see him again. It's hard to believe that these creatures are the same type of creature as the Great Rove. Anyway, thankfully he leaves. This is something that I thought I was going crazy over, but I saw it on Reddit quite a few times now. Turns out, yeah, you just have a special animation that can play if you're in the Scarlet Forest because the Woodwoods are around. Kind of insane random detail, and makes me a little bit more grateful for my Palico that's... I don't know, is this normal? Is he normal? Either way, man, so much detail. Right, to end the episode, I just want to give you a couple gameplay tips, just ones that I've mentioned in recent videos, but I'll just blast through, just to give you guys an idea of what kind of things we'd like to talk about in this series, if you have any useful suggestions. Firstly, there's a couple tips you can be aware of, that while your weapon is currently active and unsheathed, you don't have to put it away before you can fire flash pods or certain pods, or even use, say, different mantles. So as I unsheath my weapon, you can aim with focus mode, of course you can. But if you press on a controller the left stick in, this allows you to fire pods without having to put the weapon away. So with a flash pod, that's incredibly useful against flying wyverns and every kind of situation where a blind would be useful. You can also do something similar with your mantles. If I hold L1, I can open up this special menu. I can extend it by pressing the pad button on a PlayStation 5 controller to show me all of the different things, such as quickly finding my mantles, like so. But if I want to quickly activate a mantle mid-combat with my weapon unsheathed, what I can do on a controller is hold that L1 that brings up that menu, and then instead of pressing anything else, I just press R2 at the same time, and it quick puts the mantle on. Now, something that really annoys me when I'm in the middle of combat and my mantles run out and I want to take it off so that it starts to recover its cooldown and I can get it back on soon again, I want to take it off as quick as possible. And mid-fight, that sometimes means putting my weapon away to do so. We can do the same thing. Holding L1, press R2, puts the mantle away without interrupting the combat. Never sheathing the weapon. Super handy to know. For a final tip, I want to highlight something in the Scarlet Forest, which is just handy to know about. Those coins, those wyvern coins, you're going to need a lot of them for certain trading. There's actually a few locations for them in the Scarlet Forest, but one right here, right by Area 8, there's a pop-up camp. So if you wanted, you could set up a tent here and then continuously rest in this location to refresh the zone, which would refresh the location that there's a coin right over here behind a waterfall. So the entrance to the tent or the pop-up camp is indeed in the cave, hidden behind the waterfall. And we can see from this location across the water there is that coin that we're talking about. And here it is, the coin. So if you want to keep collecting this, you can rest and come back here, or maybe you've rested somewhere else for different purposes, and you come back this way just to pick up the next coin. Getting 30 of those leads to, you know, one of those gold melding tickets, which is certainly worth the effort. But there you have it. That is my first Things in Monster Hunter Wilds episode. I hope that was interesting or useful. Just some stuff that I've seen and noticed in my time with the game so far. I have quite the collection of stuff I'd like to talk about, but I would love to hear from you guys. If there's anything you think would fit in a series like this that should be highlighted, whether it's weird, interesting, goofy, or bug, or of course, importantly, anything that's a useful tip, those are very welcome too. And if you do suggest something that I use in the series, then I'll be sure to call you out and credit you. So let me know in the comments down below. For now then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.